following program was recorded at the annual CSCMP conference in San Diego. I'm pleased to welcome Managing Editor of Supply Chain Brain, Bob Bowman.
It's often been called the forgotten part of the supply chain, reverse logistics, but it's just as important as every other process. So we're going to talk now about trends in reverse logistics with my guest today, Tim Konrad, Senior Vice President of GENCO Supply Chain Solutions. Tim, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Bob.
So please fill us in on what are the major trends right now that you see in reverse logistics.
What we're seeing is retailers and manufacturers are both trying to get more value or a higher net recovery of product that comes back in the reverse supply chain. What I mean by that is they're trying to get the product and the value of that product sooner rather than later in the supply chain.
When you say trying to get value, though, what are some of the ways in which these companies are deriving more value from a reverse logistics process?
We're seeing manufacturers looking at the supply chain to end up saying, what we'd like to do is to get the value out sooner. So in some cases, we're seeing manufacturers and retailers working together to end up doing product testing, or for that matter, even remarketing and liquidation at the retailer's return center, rather than transporting the product all the way back to the manufacturer. We call that smart returns.
Now, are these trends specific to certain segments, or are they pertinent to the entire range of reverse logistics situations?
Depends on the value of the product. We see a very strong trend in the consumer electronics and the information technology products, primarily because of the higher value of the product. We also have seen some of our clients end up even looking at things like garments. And you have a funny look on your face, and some people actually say that, or they show that expression. What happens is that if there are products that aren't sold at retail, and let's call them garments, could be a coat, let's say a leather coat, and they're not sold by springtime at retail, most people think that they're going to continue to mark those down. In some cases, those retailers actually bring them back, and they ask people like ourselves to remarket those, and then we remarket those in South America. What's happening in South America in springtime here? It's just becoming wintertime.
So you take possession of the goods at that point? It shows up on your books and you are responsible for remarketing?
Depends on the model that we have with our customers. In some cases we actually do take possession, and in some cases it's a consignment model.
What changes are you seeing in the areas of the traditional reverse logistics situations, such as cell phones and things like that come back so often? Are there any new techniques or new ideas in terms of extracting value from that process?
There is. In fact, there's a company that we're very familiar with that ends up actually reflashing the software on the cell phone, as I was talking earlier, further up the supply chain. So now the product becomes more available for them to remarket. Takes the personal information off the drive or off the chip on that cell phone. It ends up allowing them to end up remarketing it sooner. Because if you think about the product that's in the high-tech space, what happens is the product value continues to decrease every single week it's in the supply chain because of the high turnover or because of the new product launches, in particular with the high-tech space. Cell phones are a great example. PCs, we know from some data, is that actually product reduces itself by almost 1% a week. So the sooner that we can get that product back into the remarketing arena, the quicker that we can end up increasing the value for them because we don't have so many touches going further down the supply chain.
Now, for a lot of manufacturers, traditionally, reverse logistics has probably been essentially viewed as, a necessary evil, something that has to be done.
Correct.
But maybe today I'm wondering if you have any tips for how a manufacturer can get a hold of the reverse logistics process and create some kind of competitive advantage, including like a first mover advantage in this area. What are your ideas in that area?
One of the examples is what we cited just a second ago in terms of trying to take the product out of the supply chain sooner. Give you an example. It's a case study we used actually at the most recent CSCMP conference that was in San Diego. Top 5 consumer electronics manufacturer, TVs and DVDs. And what happens is the facility that they handle that product is all the way back on the West Coast. So if you think about it, 33% of the U.S. population is between Boston and Washington, D.C. Well, if we can get that product sooner out of that supply chain, on behalf of that manufacturer, we're eliminating all the transportation leg that goes from one coast to the next coast. we're ending up doing a triage, which I'll call a plug and play. Because in most cases, consumer electronics have a 70% no trouble found. So a consumer is more than likely to return it for a couple reasons. One's buyer's remorse. That your spouse or my spouse happened to find out that we bought an $800 TV and maybe we couldn't pay the mortgage. Or we actually have some cyclical cycles that we end up having consumers return products at certain times of year. Large screen TVs for some reason come back the day or 2 days after the Super Bowl. Video cameras come back very aggressively after the graduation and wedding season. So it's just one of those situations that take place in retail that consumers have a returns privilege. But we see product that comes back that doesn't have any problems with it. So the sooner that we can test those and make sure that they don't, we can put them into the supply chain sooner, eliminate those transportation costs, eliminate the multiple touches that we have by the manufacturer receiving it, doing that same function. And we like to say that we probably end up getting an increase in net recovery value of anywhere between 20 and 40%.
But product life cycles are so short these days. Can you do it in time to the point where you can put them back on the marketplace and they're still a current product?
Yeah, in fact, what happens is in some of our cases we have to make sure that we're not competing with a stock that's out there. Because of new product launches and because in some of our clients' examples, they're able to get product to the store, they're able to sell it, and a consumer may return it the next day. Within the end of that week, if it happens to be a Monday or Tuesday, it could be back into one of our return centers. So we need to make sure that we follow the protocol as well as some of the terms and conditions we have with our manufacturer customers, that we don't try to erode some of their A-stock channels.
Now it's retailers who get beat up by a poor logistics, reverse logistics process in the eyes of the consumer.
Sure.
What are retailers doing in this area in order to derive true advantage from their reverse logistics processes?
There's some collaboration that can definitely take place between the manufacturers and the retailers in particular of taking some of that product out. And the retailers in particular, and we were talking about garments earlier, on the fashion side of the business, that same smart returns example that we use is being used by some retailers today. So in some cases, we are actually taking product from store level rather than taking it all the way back to the return center, so that we can end up doing some of that liquidation on their behalf. So again, closer to market, closer to where the product happens to be, rather than transporting all the way back and basically adding additional cost to something that we probably shouldn't.
You know, everybody's concerned about transportation capacity these days, both in regular forward logistics and reverse logistics. I'm wondering if you see an impact on the reverse logistics sector as a result of the transportation capacity issues that we've been experiencing in recent years.
I mean, we're all faced with that. And what happens is we end up trying to work with our clients to build economic loads. And what I mean by economic loads, in most cases, we're actually having them build pallets at the store level. So at that point, we're talking about having them build it 7 feet high, and we're also adding on product that is recyclables. So for example, at a retail store, if we all buy a shirt or a coat, sometimes they're wrapped with plastic. Well, the plastic is recyclable, and we ask them to put that light material, plastics, on top of the pallet. In essence, it's almost writing for free. And once they come back to the return center, we're able to aggregate that, we bale it, and we end up actually getting some dollars for it rather than throwing it into the landfill and making some of our garbage haulers wealthy.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for sharing some really great new ideas in reverse logistics.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I've been speaking with Tim Konrad of GENCO Supply Chain Solutions about reverse logistics. Thank you very much for watching.